Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the reenactment of the trial of Alphonse Capone. This particular thing is very historically accurate in many ways. A little bit of comic relief here and there, but a couple of things to say. First off, when you hear the bell is a free screen for the actors and those participating in the play. Okay, so that there is someone who can address the audience directly. Okay, so that's the meaning for the bell when you hear that go off. If anybody wants to take movies, that's fine. Please move to the back or to the sides to do that. If you're not involved in any of that, and we would appreciate it if you turn off your cell phones so it doesn't interfere with the play as it goes. So thank you very much. Welcome, as I said, to this dramatic presentation of the trial of the notorious Al Capone. You have to think, this was the year 1931. And after many years of investigating America's first public enemy #1, federal prosecutors were finally ready to bring the Big Al down. He was known across the country as Scarface, or the Big Guy. But the nickname that he much preferred was Snorky, meaning a kind of an elegant guy or really a sharp dresser. Capone was the kingpin of the most profitable crime syndicate in Chicago's history. He ruled with an iron fist, cops on the beat, lawmakers in City Hall. Even the judges on the bench were on his payroll. And woe be to anyone who sought to invade his turf. Many paid with their lives. Capone was seen as a folk hero by many. You know, he lived in the lap of luxury. He opened a soup kitchen for the poor. He boasted that he proudly gave the thirsty public what they wanted: good quality booze at reasonable prices. But putting together the evidence and seating a jury that was going to be honest and courageous enough to convict him would not be easy. In fact, the jurors who are about to be seated over there have no intention of delivering a fair verdict. That's right, the fix is in. So somebody on the inside sneaked their names to the Capone outfit. So the 12 guys waiting behind that door have showered it with everything from $100 bills to prize fight tickets to threats to their well-being. And oddly enough, the judge knows this, and he's done nothing so far. So the defense team has every reason in the world to feel very, very confident about the trial's outcome. Now, many of you are aware that Countersport's own Eliot Ness played a major role in gathering the evidence against Al Capone. So it is understandable that Ness has been subpoenaed as a prosecution witness. And wait a minute, I say, yeah, here he comes now. Now, Ness became famous for his fearless attack on Capone's outfit and the booze rackets in Chicago. And this was the day. This is the day that Eliot Ness had been waiting for.
The judge is ready.
Just heard that the judge is ready. He just sent word that he's prepared to proceed, so at this time I will introduce the principals. Our prosecutor is U.S. Attorney George E.Q. Johnson. Representing the defense is Attorney Albert Fink.
All right. Honorable James H. Wilkerson, presiding. God save the United States and this honorable court.
Please be seated. Bailiff, you may now escort the defendant to his seat.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, everybody, nice to see you come out to say hello. What are you doing tonight, though? I'll be free, don't worry, I'll come find you.
Hey, Al. Looks like you got dressed up for the occasion.
Yeah, pretty loud, isn't it, huh? Gotta give the audience a thrill. Tell you something else, buddy. You think I'm going out of here today in shackles? You got another thing coming.
We'll see about that, Al. That Frank Wilson will let the Revenue Department's investigation into your taxes. You know, I gotta tell you, there's a lot of charisma and a lot of talent. It's just a shame you couldn't have channeled that in a better direction. You could have been a real credit to society.
Well, let me tell you something, buddy. I've done pretty good for myself. And for a lot of other people, too.
We'll see about that.
Oh, yeah, hey. Hey, let's just get this nonsense over with. Hey, counselor, which one of them stuffed shirts over there is that Ness guy?
Oh, that's him right there. I'm surprised he didn't bring his own press brigade.
He may look all cool and collected now, but he won't be so smug when he's finally behind bars.
Are we ready to proceed?
Your Honor, before we seat the jurors, Attorney Fink and I have a preliminary matter to take up with the court. In fact, you may not even need to see the jury.
What's this? I'm not fond of surprises.
Your Honor, the defense has reached an agreement with the government, and that my client wishes to enter a plea of guilty.
What? Why was I not made aware of this, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Your Honor, the defendant has agreed to admit to tax evasion and prohibition violations, and in return, the government will recommend a sentence of 2.5 years.
Whoa. Gentlemen, if I agree to that sentence, Mr. Capone would be up for parole in, what, 8 months? Are you really willing to agree to that?
That's right. I arranged an easy out from the feds.
Mr. Johnson, I think it's an insult to the court that anyone would expect me to go along with something that lenient.
Your Honor, I can't go back on my word with the defense. They don't realize is that we're depending on the court to take this deal. We're actually skating on thin ice here. We've never tried to turn a tax cheat into a criminal before. Our case is a little bit thin, and frankly, most of the evidence is circumstantial.
Gentlemen, I am not going to let a gangster come in here and run my courtroom. I'm quite certain this deal would stink in the nostrils of the American public. Now, I'll agree to allow Mr. Capone to plead guilty, but I, and no one else, will decide the sentence. So, gentlemen, what will it be?
Your Honor, given the uncertainty of the sentencing, my client pleads not guilty.
All right, then. We'll proceed with the trial. Is the government ready?
Yes, Your Honor, the government is ready.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, if I may,
Well, before we allow the jury to enter, it's peculiar to me, I have to say, that a man with the dubious distinction of public enemy number 1 now stands before a court for skimping of his taxes.
it is our intention to send a message loud and clear across this land that no one man is above the law.
Your Honor, my client has repeatedly been subjected to this endless stream of innuendo, highly inflammatory publicity that contains not even a kernel of truth. Why, half the city has been turned against it. by this concerted effort to destroy his good name. So now we have these groundless tax evasion charges, and we intend to knock this myth down today.
Gentlemen, let's get one thing straight. The grandstanding is going to stop right now. Is there anything else before we seat the jury?
Just one more thing, Your Honor. In view of the court's rejection of the plea arrangements, we would like to introduce into evidence this certified letter. It's a copy of a letter wherein the defendant signed it in an effort to settle this case. Specifically, Mr. Capone was acknowledging some $70,000 of income from various enterprises and a tax liability of $15,000 for the years 1927 and 1928.
Your Honor, we have no objections. We think the agreement shows a sincere effort on the part of my client to pay his taxes, and that is what this trial is all about.
In response, Your Honor, we believe that this document proves that this defendant was actually trying to pay only a small fraction of what he owed. We believe it is the proverbial smoking gun in our case.
Now, $15,000 sounds like chicken feed to you and I, but remember, this is 1931. So Capone was really, he was agreeing to pay a tax bill of about $250,000, $250,000 when you translate this to 2019 values.
Well, since there's no objections, I'm going to admit it. Now, is there anything else?
Yes, sir. May we approach?
I thought the grandstand was going to stop.
We got it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been brought to my attention that there is a gentleman positioned at the second row there behind the defendant whose behavior has been a little concerning to some people in this courtroom. Bill, I want you to approach Mr. Philip D'Andrea, seated on the end of the row, and just see what you might find under that coat.
That's my friend. What are you doing?
Oh, good grief. Get that guy out of here. I don't know if this is a trial or a circus, but I'm bound and determined to stop all the sideshows. Well, if everybody's finally ready, this time we're going to introduce the jury, but I have a little surprise. Bailiff, I'd like you to take those jurors sequestered in the room down the back steps of the courthouse to the courtroom of Judge Edwards. Then I'd like you to immediately return here to the jury from that case.
So there you have it. Like I told you before, the fix was in, but Judge Wilkerson knew all along that the jury was crooked. So he reached into his bag of tricks, he got together with another judge, and they worked out a deal to simply swap the juries. You know, speaking of which, it appears that I think our new jury has arrived.
Who are these guys? Put somebody right on us. What are these guys making?
Well, assuming that the defendant and his cheering section can control themselves. We will begin this trial now with opening statements. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, gentlemen of the jury. This trial is about the proposition that no one is above the law. There are a lot of things that this trial is not about. But gentlemen, you have sworn an oath, the highest oath, as jurors, as citizens of the city of Chicago, to answer one question. Did this defendant, Alphonse Capone, pay his taxes? You're going to hear from a number of witnesses and see a lot of evidence, and some of these witnesses are going to speak to the character of this defendant and whether he is a man who is likely to obey the law. But my father told me something one time. He said, if an animal looks like a skunk and walks like a skunk and smells like a skunk, he is most likely not your family's pet cat. Gentlemen, I ask three things of you. The first is to pay close attention to the evidence that the government will present. The second is to listen carefully to the instructions on the law that Judge Wilkerson will give you at the end of the trial. And last, but certainly not least, I ask you to use the good common sense that you bring to these proceedings as jurors and as citizens of the city of Chicago. And finally, we are confident, when all of the evidence has been presented, that you will find this defendant, Alphonse Capone, guilty of tax evasion. Thank you.
Does the defense have an opening statement?
We do, Your Honor. Members of the jury, today you're going to hear all kinds of wild tales about my client, including this carefully crafted myth that he didn't want to pay his taxes. He did try to pay his taxes. In fact, the prosecution has a signed and certified letter that proves he wanted to. And the federal government, greedy as always and grasping, wanted him to pay more and more. Lord knows how much of your tax dollars, hard-earned as they are, were wasted in trying to pin something on my client. They don't like him. In fact, I think they're a bit jealous of him. What you haven't heard is the other side of the story. How this generous man, through an unfortunate bet on a thoroughbred horse, had to dig deep to cover his losses. But also that my client, through his open-handed generosity, was able to provide the souls of the South Side with a warm place to sleep, nutritious food to eat. You're also going to hear how my client, Mr. Capone, offered to pay much more in taxes than he ever was expected to. Now, we are here because we have to endure this ordeal because of the federal government. So we look forward to setting the record straight, and we are surely ready to proceed.
Very well. Mr. Johnson, you may call your first witness.
The people call Mr. Chester Bragg.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Mr. Bragg, is it correct that you were deputized to carry out a raid at a business known as the Hawthorne Hotel in suburban Chicago, wearing a substantial gambling operation was located.
Yes, sir, I was.
Could you explain to us what you observed during that raid?
Sure. I was assigned to guard the front door. The rest of the guys were inside, breaking down, dismantling all the equipment. They had slot machines, roulette tables, craps tables, all that kind of stuff. There were lots of people out front, clamoring, some to get away, and others just to get a closer look.
Did you have occasion to see the defendant that evening?
I did. This black car pulls up. He jumps out of the back seat, pushes his way through the crowd. Of course, most people were kind of afraid of him trying to get away. There were a few trying to get a closer look at him, too. He comes right up to me and with this mean look on his face. And I said, hey, what? You think this is a party or what? You know, I ain't scared of nobody.
And did Mr. Capone say anything in response?
Yeah, he said, hey, bud, this is my joint. What's going on?
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Fink, do you want to cross-examine the witness?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The people call Mr. Leslie Shumway.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Shumway. Could you please describe your position at the Hawthorne Hotel?
Well, basically, I kept the books. I took care of the money, every penny of it. I made sure nobody got their crooked needles on it.
I see. And who was the owner of the Hawthorne?
Well, I'm not actually sure I know that. Come to think of it, different people were in charge. I can't really tell you for sure who actually owned it.
Let me put it another way. Did you have any reason to believe that the defendant, Mr. Capone, was connected with the Hawthorne?
Well, yes, I did take orders from Mr. Capone. Well, sort of.
Your Honor, I object. Sort of? What's that supposed to mean? Totally unfair bias against my client.
I'm going to sustain that.
I'm sorry. Mr. Shumway, did you at any time have any conversation with the defendant about the handling of money at the Hawthorne?
Yes, one time, Al asked me, he says, what would I do if I got stuck up? And I said, I would just let him take it. And he says, that's right. He says, we have ways of dealing with people like that, so you don't have to. Les, all you gotta do is get a good look at them, and we'll take care of the rest and handle it from there.
Do you have any estimate of how much money was taken in at the Hawthorne?
I don't know, we probably took in about $1,000 a day.
By $1,000, do you mean about $1,000 per day, or somewhere around $300,000 per year?
I guess. Like I said, I'm really just estimating.
No further questions.
Mr. Fink?
Well, Your Honor, based on the fact that this trial is all about paying taxes, I mean, nobody's on trial for gambling here. And there's no documentation as to my client's ownership stake in Hawthorne. I have nothing.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Johnson, you may call your next witness.
People call Mr. Fred Reese.
You've done all right,
Thanks, Al.
Mr. Fink? section. Now, I have a little weapon here that I can use to quiet you, and it's called a contempt order. I don't want to go that far. How about a word to the wise might be sufficient? You may proceed.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sure I do.
Mr. Reese, is it true that you were employed as a cashier at a gambling house in suburban Chicago known as The Ship in 1927 and 1928, and that one of your jobs was to assist with the handling of the business's profits?
Yeah, that was one of the things I did.
Please explain that process to the court.
Well, let's see. I was in charge of collecting all the loot that came in each day, you know, the profits, and making sure it all ended up where it was supposed to go.
What did that entail?
Well, I was in charge of taking the cash over to the bank and turning it in for cashier's checks. Then I would deposit them to the credit of the Laramie Kennel Club in the First National Bank.
To the best of your recollection, what was the Laramie Kennel Club?
It was a dog trap, you know, racing dogs, greyhounds.
Who owned it?
As far as I know, there was three of them. There was Mr. Patton, Mr. O'Hare, and Mr. Capone.
And I assume you're referring to the defendant, Mr. Alphonse Capone?
Yeah, he was one of them.
Did you keep records of the profits at the ship?
Well, I didn't save any paperwork, but the place probably netted about $4,000 a week. Yeah, all that.
Did you ever see Mr. Capone on the premises of the ship?
Sure, he stopped in once in a while.
Now, was that as a customer or something else?
Well, when he stopped in, he usually talked to the bosses, and he usually disappeared into a back room. I didn't ask any questions.
Mr. Reese, I'm going to show you a series of documents marked Prosecution Exhibits number 2 through 23. This is a series of cashier's checks from the Pinkard State Bank made out to an individual named J.C. Dunbar. Can you identify these?
Yeah, these are cashier's checks I received from the bank when I took the money over there.
Fine. Who is this J.C. Dunbar?
Do I have to answer that?
Well, for crying out loud, of course you do.
Okay, it was really me. I signed the name J.C. Dunbar to them. The bosses said I had to do it or there'd be trouble.
I understand. Now, Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Reese, I'm going to show you a check marked exhibit number 22. Do you recognize that?
I do. It's a check for $5,000 signed on the back by J.C. Dunbar, just like all the others. But this one also has another signature.
Please read the other name on the back.
It says Alphonse Capone. Jeez, I'm not sure how that happened.
Do you believe that this is indeed an endorsement of this check by the defendant?
I'm afraid I have to say that it does look like his writing.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. So moving on, during your time at the ship, did you ever have any occasion to observe any personnel changes that took place on June 2nd, 1927?
Yeah, the defendant and his brother Ralph Capone came in and ordered a bunch of us to meet him in the back room. Then he says to Jimmy Money and two of the other guys something like, look, I know damn well you haven't been playing straight with me. Then he and Ralphie kicked him out the back door. That's the last I saw him.
No further questions.
Mr. Fink, do you want to cross-examine?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Mr. Reese, this is not your first time before the law, is it?
No, sir. I've been here before. I know where you're going with this.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you do. You're probably reminiscing about the time you spent in this chair that Mr. Capone is in right now. Let's see, for burglary, illegal sale of intoxicating beverages, and, oh my, here's an interesting one, perjury. It seems as if you have a little trouble when it comes to telling the truth, Mr. Reese.
Look, a lot of that's just overblown stuff, because the coppers don't like me.
Be seated.
Never have. That's because when they come around from time to time, looking for a little, shall we say, generosity, I tell them to go to hell.
And did the prosecutors tell you to sing like a canary, or they'll come down hard on you for conspiracy?
Well, that's not the words they used, but they did let it be known that they might show some leniency to me if I shared what I knew. At first I told them I wasn't a rat, but I finally came around.
Was that before they tossed you in a cold, dark jail cell so that you have some time to think about it for a while?
Yeah, more or less. I couldn't see any way around it.
Your Honor, this witness has clearly been intimidated, and I'm going to move that all of his testimony be stricken from the record.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Mr. Fink, I mean, the witness's testimony does speak for itself. Members of the jury, it's going to be up to you to decide the witness's credibility. I'm going to deny your motion. Now, if you want to cross-examine on his actual testimony, rather than taking us down another road, then proceed.
No, Your Honor, I think I made my point.
Jurors, you also disregard that remark, and it will be stricken from the record. Now look, Mr. Fink, if you think grandstanding and raising frivolous objections is the proper way to make your case in my courtroom, you got another thing coming. You're treading mighty closely to a contempt order. Do I make myself clear?
Of course, Your Honor.
The witness may step down. Next.
Your Honor, the people call Miss Maisie O'Donnell.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. I sure do.
Good afternoon, Miss O'Donnell.
Please, call me Miss Maisie. I'm not much for formalities. They kind of make me nervous.
Well, you certainly don't want that, okay, Miss Maisie? Are you familiar with the defendants?
Well, Mr. Johnson, I guess that depends on what you mean by familiar, if you catch my drift.
I think I catch it. Let me rephrase that. Have you ever had any kind of business relationship with Mr. Capone?
Sure, we had an arrangement. Oh, no contract or nothing.
Please describe it to the jury.
Well, first off, you gotta realize that I go back a long time in my profession. You'll have to excuse me if I don't remember I don't generally write things down for obvious reasons. I'll just have to tell you, I guess, what I remember.
That's all we're asking.
Well, I used to work for Johnny, Johnny Toria. And the business was brisk. He had a lot of girls. I don't know about you, counselor, but there are a lot of guys in this town who like to have a good time.
Very well, Mr. McConnell. To answer your question, I'm not one of them. Now, please continue.
Sorry. So anyhow, Johnny had a good thing going. And like I said, our girls were the best in town. And then Mr. Capone comes along.
Your Honor, I have to object. The prosecution is taking us off on another trip down this carefully crafted lane of character assassination. Are you going to let this continue, Your Honor?
Well, Mr. Fink, the prosecution does have every right to lay a foundation, so let's see where this is going, but it better get there fast.
We're almost there, Your Honor. Miss Maisie, please describe your business with me.
Look, I was getting to that. I don't want to be here, so take it easy on little old Miss Maisie. Okay? Anyhow, once Mr. Capone took over Johnny's rackets, everything changed. First off, we had to raise our fees for, shall we say, our services. Then we had to take all the money we took in each night and hand it over to Mr. Capone's crony, a guy they called Greasy Thumb. His last name was, I think, was Guzik. Yeah, that's it, Guzik, I think.
Could you tell us how much money you delivered to this Mr. Guzik?
Well, I can only estimate, but once I paid the girls and took out the standard 10%, Greasy Thumb must have taken home between $2,000 and $3,000 a week. Like I said, we were the best in town, and all the big spenders around here knew it.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Fink?
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Maisie, just how do you know that the money turned over to this Greasy Thumb was delivered to Mr. Capone?
Well, I can't say that I saw him hand it over, but when Mr. Capone took over the business, he sat down with me and he told me to take all the money that we took in each night and to hand it over to this Guzik guy.
I see. So you don't really know what Mr. Guzik did with the money after you handed it over to him?
No. Why, I can't say that I do.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Why, thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness.
The people call Parker Henderson.
Raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
in town.
Did you have any occasion to conduct business with the defendant?
I sure did. And it was a real honor. Basically, Mr. Capone sought me out and said that he had an interest in buying property. So we made an appointment to take him around, look at several places.
Did he mention how much he might be willing to spend?
Well, no, but I figured a guy like Al Capone could pretty much buy anything that suited his fancy.
And after you took him around, did he make a decision?
Yes, he did. There was this one property we had. He seemed to like it quite a bit. I mean, who wouldn't? It was out on Palm Island, and it was one of the best places around.
Go on.
So after we toured the house, Mr. Capone said that he would take it, but he needed to put the title in his wife's name.
Is that something that's unusual in your line of work?
I'd have to say yes, but we took pride in being flexible to meet our clients' needs.
Okay, so continue.
All right, so we settled on a price of $40,000. I quoted them $50,000, but ever since the hurricane, we've had trouble moving some of these high-end places. So he whipped out $10,000 in cash for the down payment to basically take it off the market. And then after that, the next day, he gave me a check for $30,000 endorsed by his wife. And that closed the deal.
And was that the extent of the payments that the defendant made to you in this transaction?
Well, yes and no.
Please explain.
Okay. Well, later on, there were a few things that Mr. Capone wanted, and I said I'd be happy to, accommodate him. Like I said, we aim to please.
Can you elaborate?
Okay, for instance, Mr. Capone said he wanted a really nice swimming pool, so I arranged for that. And also, he liked his privacy. I can see why. And so I arranged for a contractor to put in a perimeter fence with an iron gate.
What did those modifications cost?
Oh, let's see. The pool came in at around $4,000, including all the accessories. I believe the fence and gate were around $3,000. There were some interior modifications for probably another $2,000 and $3,000.
And how did
And, well, Counselor, since I'm under oath, I have to tell the truth. Mr. Capone asked me to acquire a quantity of alcoholic beverages for him. Bonded Canadian Scotch whiskey, to be precise. Now, I'm not a drinking man myself, and I know this is illegal, but I felt it was my professional obligation to meet my client's needs.
And how did the defendant pay for that?
Oh, he used cash. Outside of that big check signed by his wife, it was always cash.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
Mr. Finkel, you want to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Henderson, getting back to your response to Mr. Johnson a moment ago, can you tell me if there have been any other buyers in your profession who paid with cash or had a spouse sign a check, especially if the couple had a joint check account?
Well, yes, as I testified, it's unusual, but with the economy the way it is these days, we're seeing more of it. And as far as the joint checking account, sure, we see these.
Just as I suspected. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Your Honor, the people call Mr. Morrissey Smith.
Place your right hand on the Bible. Can we start this again? Place your right hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Smith, can you tell us what you do for a living?
I was appointed the rather historic Metropolitan Hotel in downtown Chicago as a desk clerk as well as the associate manager.
And did you ever have occasion to conduct business with the defendant?
I mean, yeah, Mr. Capone was our biggest client. I guess you could call him an investor of sorts. He bought 4 of our luxury suites.
That's very interesting. So, Mr. Smith, you know how much Mr. Capone paid as a part of these real estate transactions?
No, sir, that's somebody else's job. My job is just to make sure that our clients' needs are met.
What were some of Mr. Capone's needs?
Well, I'm not sure how much detail you want, but he was definitely our most prominent tenant. Yeah, let's call it that. I got to know him quite well, and he always took good care of me.
Can you elaborate?
Mr. Capone hosted a lot of social activities in his suite. I arranged for the food and beverages, some entertainment, you know, singers and dancers and that kind of thing. Some really famous ones too, like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, some other heavy hitters. Anytime he needed anything, I was the guy he called.
What about the financial arrangements?
Real simple. A day or 2 after the party, I prepare a bill and he pay.
How was the payment made?
Oh, always cash. He had a large wad in the back of his pocket, and he'd pull that out and pay me from it.
Can you estimate what an average bill might be for one of these social affairs?
Average? It really changes from time to time. Maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Plus, he always had a very generous tip. I don't think anyone was a better tipper than Mr. Alphonse Capone.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
It was part of his job.
Mr. Baker. Would you like to cross-examine?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Your Honor, at this time, the people call Mr. Eliot Ness.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mr. Ness, what was your role in the investigation of Alphonse Capone?
Well, basically, as Mr. Capone's outfit got more violent, people and businesses were staying away from the Chicago area. The local police were mostly on the take, and businesses were starting to suffer. I was brought in as part of a team to start restoring order.
Do you know why the federal government became involved in all of this?
Well, the truth is that the local police just weren't doing their job. The revenue guys started digging through Capone's books for evidence of tax evasion. At the same time, I was brought in and directed to gather evidence of prohibition violations and to cripple Capone's ability to operate by cutting off any and all of his income.
How did you go about doing that?
Well, basically, by selecting a team of agents who could not be bought or bribed. I scoured the personnel files of the Prohibition Agency at that time across the country, looking for men who were incorruptible and who had special skills.
Who did you find?
Well, the team was mostly made up of about 10 agents that I had selected based on their skills, their integrity, and the difficult and dangerous work we would be doing. Wiretapping, undercover work, and raids, just to name a few.
When you say raids, I assume you are saying that you seized the supplies of alcoholic beverages?
Objection, Your Honor. My client is not on trial for that. This is not a tax case.
Certainly is, and I'm going to sustain that objection. Mr. Johnson, do you know the rules?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was just trying to establish that Mr. Ness is a highly successful successful federal agent, an incorruptible public servant whose credibility is exceptionally high.
Mr. Johnson, we get that. I'm pretty sure the witness will have ample opportunity to tell the world about his heroic deeds later on. Maybe he could write a book about how untouchable he is. But today, we're focusing only on tax evasion, so please proceed with that and don't stray from that again.
All right, Mr. Ness, did you have any occasion to obtain any financial records related to the defendant's home?
Yes, sir. On several of our raids, the team and I gathered ledgers, spreadsheets, and other business records that we handed over to the tax team.
Did you compile any other records related to the activities of the defendant?
Yes, we did.
Could you elaborate?
Certainly. After obtaining the required authorization to tap the phone lines of a few of the defendants' hubs of operation, the guys and I would compile the information, and we came up with quite a bit of information that we could use.
As a result of tapping certain telephone lines at the Monte Carlo Cafe,
Oh yes, it was the Monte Carlo.
could you describe from that how you knew that you were tapping into the right phone lines?
Sure. One of the agents used metal spikes, and they climbed up the telephone pole to the call box. One of the other agents had worked his way into the inner circle of the defendant's organization and asked Ralph Capone if he could use his office phone to call home to his wife. The agent up on the pole listened into each of the lines until he heard the voice that he recognized of our other agent. He applied the wiretap, and we were all set.
Mr. Ness, I'd like to show you a document that's been marked as exhibit number 24. Do you recognize that?
Certainly. This is a transcript of the wiretapping that my guys did.
And can you read the sections marked paragraphs 13 through 27?
Sure. Whitey, how do we carve up this loot? Big Al is getting a little ornery. The numbers are down, and a couple of the cops are clamoring for their share. Jackie, look, this do-gooder guy, what's his name, Ness? He's becoming a problem. We're down about 5,000 a week now with the brewery shutdowns. We need to fire them back up. Whitey, what we ought to do is take him out. For now, let's give Big Al the 10,000 off the top and hold off the other guys. If Al doesn't get his cut, we'll both be looking for work or pushing up daisies. And remember, cash only, no names, no records. We've already had one slip up where Al signed his own name to one of the Dunbar checks. Geez, guys, you ought to be more careful.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Ness, could you please explain how you would interpret those sections that you just read?
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation. It's up to the jury to decide what those transcripts mean.
Well, Mr. Fink, I have to believe that Mr. Ness is a seasoned investigator. Probably have a better perspective on this than, say, the man in the street, so your objection is overruled. You may answer the question.
Thank you, sir. Okay, having studied reams of wiretap transcripts, the pattern I picked up is collecting a large volume of cash, always cash, as to avoid any type of paper trail, and making sure that the defendant receives his cut. That's the simple answer. I could certainly elaborate.
No, Mr. Ness, you will not. We will allow that testimony to stand as presented. We're not going to progress down the slippery slope of speculation beyond that. Now, let's move on.
Very well, Your Honor. Mr. Ness, everyone has read about your heroic raids in the newspaper. Just how did your squad get the name The Untouchables?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I have to object again. Does it really matter what the headlines say?
Your Honor, I believe I do have a right to establish the credibility of my witness.
I'm going to overrule the objection, but let's keep it brief. The witness may answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. There was a reason I pulled in the newspapers to help us. The blood and violence in the streets had just gotten way out of hand, and many of the citizens were losing faith in our institutions. And we wanted to make sure to send a message loud and clear that these criminals wouldn't triumph over law and order. So one of the newspapers dubbed us untouchables anyhow. I guess it kind of stuck.
Thank you, Mr. Ness. Nothing further.
Any cross-examination?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Mr. Ness, I understand that you testified you were targeting certain individuals who were believed to be connected with the defendant. Would you care to tell us how you determined something like that?
Well, sir, early on in the investigation, we developed organizational charts, and it became evident that certain subjects of our investigation were taking orders directly from the defendant and his associates.
Evident to you, perhaps. Your transcript referred to the person as a Big Al. Do you have any idea how many men in the greater Chicago area are named Al?
Not really.
Okay, neither do I, but we could say that it's probably in the hundreds or possibly quite a bit more. Would you agree that more than one of them might be perhaps a bit overweight, tall, perhaps very important, and they might be referred to as a Big Al?
That's probably a safe guess.
Right. So in other words, when these guys are talking about this person known as Big Al, there's no real proof. Just their so-called professional experience that they were talking about my client.
Well, sir, that is for others to decide. I can tell you one thing for certain. There was only one individual we were investigating that went by the name Al, who happens to be a rather large man.
Oh, Your Honor, we have no further questions. Mr. Ness, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the government calls Agent Joseph D. Gleason.
Raise your right hand. Raise your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Gleason, please tell the jury how you came to be a part of Mr. Ness's squad.
Yeah, at that time, I was working as a prohibition agent in Detroit. Mr. Ness said he was looking for an agent that had experience in tailing suspects and automobiles and a few other certain kind of handiworks.
What kind of work did you do with this squad?
Well, early on, another agent and I, we were tailing Capone's trucks and we found a warehouse where they were cleaning beer barrels. And after that, it was easy to follow those trucks carrying those clean beer barrels, and we started to pinpoint all the breweries and where they were.
What did you do once you discovered the source?
Well, first I designed a specific battering ram to be weld-ons at the front of a 10-ton truck. Then we found, the first time out, we found a brewery, and we decided to hit that at sunrise. When Mr. Ness gave the signal, we crashed through the door. We ended up having, I think, a half dozen men, and after that, we started smashing up all the brewery equipment.
And can you tell the court what one of the suspects said to you?
Sure, this one guy, he identified himself as the brewmaster. Guy's name was Swoboda, Paul Swoboda Hyman. He said something like, "You guys don't know who you're messing with. Don't you guys know this is Al Capone's place? You guys are signing your own death warrant. If you don't get the hell out of here, then, so I'm telling you for your own good."
And was that the last you saw of Mr. Swoboda Hyman?
Absolutely not. I told Mr. Ness what he had said. Mr. Ness thought for a few seconds and said, "I'm going to go down to pay Mr. Swoboda a visit." And unfortunately, he had quite a surprise.
What was that?
Well, the desk sergeant told him that He'd got an order from the chief, and he had let Mr. Swoboda go, and all the charges were dropped. Next week, sure enough, we busted another brewery. I think that was down on Clark Street. And sure enough, there he was. Mr. Swoboda doing another batch of subs.
Your Honor, if I may, this witness has not offered a shred of evidence about tax evasion. I must object.
I'm going to sustain it, Mr. Johnson. I understand you need to lay a foundation, but you know, it's time to build a house.
I apologize, Your Honor. Mr. Leeson, your raids involved destroying brewery equipment and making arrests. Did you not also collect evidence?
We sure did. A couple of places we raided, we found a lot of file folders, some financial ledgers, and they were full of revealing information.
Thank you, Mr. Leeson. I have nothing else.
Any cross?
Why, yes, Your Honor. Since we've been focusing on credibility so much today, Mr. Leeson, it is my understanding that you weren't quite so untouchable. Didn't you like to enjoy a bit of something every now and again?
Objection! My witness is not on trial.
I'll let it go, but only as it pertains to credibility. You know, that gate swings both ways, Mr. Johnson. The witness may answer the question.
Yes, Your Honor. Hey, look, we weren't teetotalers, okay? For us, this wasn't about the drinking. This was about standing up for the law and letting the people know that crime does not pay. I'll tell you one thing. It's not like we took any bribes or anything, and trust me, we had some offers.
Now, Mr. Leeson, you're not accusing my client of bribery, are you?
Hey, all I can tell you is one night we were tailing a car down the south side, and we stopped at a stop sign, and a package came flying into our window. There was this car that was parked next to us, and sure enough, we looked at the package, and it was a wad of cash. The other car tore off, and Agent Seager, he hit the gas, and we caught up, and trust me, I threw that wad of cash right back in their window.
That package should have come from Ed. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Leeson, you may step down. Is that all you have, Mr. Johnson?
Your Honor, we have just one more witness. The people call Mr. Joseph Rosenblum.
Raise your right hand. Stand over, please. Raise your right hand. Raise your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rosenblum. Is it true that you operated a men's clothier and jewelry store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago?
Yes, it is. My family has been providing the finest attire to the gentlemen in Chicagoland for over 40 years. And we have the finest of everything. And we've done this through both good times and the bad.
Well, congratulations. Now, your business probably attracts a certain class of customers who are able to afford the quality merchandise that you offer. Was the defendant, Mr. Capone, one of your customers?
Absolutely. I would classify him as probably our best customer. We would consider him a regular. I was just so pleased that he would call upon me to serve him personally.
What type of merchandise did you buy?
Oh, he has impeccable taste. He bought the best of suits, shirts, ties with ties, and shoes, and oh yeah, diamond-studded gold cufflinks and belt buckles. Always the finest that we had.
How did he pay?
Well, we had an arrangement. He would come in and he would pick out what he wanted. We'd give it to him and run a tab. And then at the end of each month, we'd send the tab to him as a bill. And within a couple of days, one of his boys would come by and pay us off in cash. Always in cash. It never failed.
Let me show you what's been marked as government exhibit number 25. Take a look at that. This is a log of the invoices paid to your business by Mr. Capone. The bottom line is that from 1927, it appears to show that the defendant made payments of just under $19,000. And in 1928, he paid you a total of $15,000 and change. Is that correct?
Let me check the record. Yes, sir, it is. And I take personal pride in the completeness and accuracy of my financial records.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any cross? No questions, Your Honor. You may step down.
Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the people rest.
Now, in the interest of time, Mr. Fink, are you prepared to call your first witness?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Mr. Patrick Vermont.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah, sure, I always tell the truth.
Mr. Vermont, where are you employed and in what capacity?
My official title is the assistant manager at the Hawthorne Hotel.
And what type of business is that?
It's a place where people can come and rent a room, buy some fine cigars, get a snack, relax, and talk with their friends, you know?
And as assistant manager, what is it that you do?
I'm sort of a security guard, kind of a doorman, make sure there's no trouble, try to be a host. Really, anything needs to be done to assistantly manage the place.
And how do you draw your pay?
Well, every Friday, Mr. Reese or Mr. Gusick comes in, they pay me $60. And if we've had a good week, I get a little more, you know? They take care of me.
I see. And while you've been employed at the Hawthorne, have you had occasion to speak with my client?
Yeah, once in a while. I mean, he used to come in from time to time. He pretty well talked to everybody, and sometimes we talked.
Did he discuss any business matters with you?
Nah, he's more interested in horse racing, and he liked to shoot the breeze about politics and baseball.
And did anyone who was employed at the Hawthorne consider him to be the boss, or the owner, or someone special?
That's a tricky question there, counselor. The boss, the owner, nah. Someone special, hell yeah, he's Al Capone.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
If he was, I never saw it.
Did he ever deliver your pay?
Hell no, I told you that I got that from Fred Reese at Reese and Fun Losing.
And as an assistant manager, one assumes that you would know whether a person was or was not an owner. I have no further questions. Your witness.
Mr. Romano, you seem to have a pretty nice job there. You said that when you, how did you phrase it, assistantly manage the Hawthorne, your basic job is to talk to people?
Well, not exactly. I mean, if anybody gets out of line, I have my way of persuading them to move along. If they don't, if I got to rub up a guy, that's what I do.
I see. So you're what they refer to in the newspapers as the muscle. And you also mentioned that you get paid in cash, and you sometimes get a bonus if the Hawthorne had a good week. You didn't mean to say that there were any illegal activities, for instance, like gambling going on, did you?
Now, wait a minute. Connor, he's trying to trick me or something here. There was no gambling there.
Sure, was there?
I think everybody likes a little action from time to time, if that's what you mean. It's just like every other joint. The boys like to throw a few cards, they like to throw the bones, you know, and maybe wager a little bit on the ponies.
Your Honor, I move that this portion of the testimony be stricken from the record. Mr. Romano is my witness, and he was called to verify that my client was not the boss or an owner of a Hawthorne. That's all we're doing here.
I'm going to sustain that. Jurors, I want you to disregard all testimony related to gambling. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything that actually relates to the direct testimony?
Just one more, Your Honor. Mr. Romano, getting back to your weekly pay, do you have any idea why you were paid in cash rather than check?
Look, I already told you. I got paid, I did my job. Why would I ask any questions? They took care of it.
No further questions.
Mr. Romano, you may step down. You may call your next witness.
The defense calls Mr. Milton Hell, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. Raise your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Of course, so help you God. Of course I do.
Mr. Hell, I know this must be awkward for you, but, and I say that because, let's face it, you're what we call a bookie. Is that not correct?
You betcha, that's what I do.
I'm not going to get any higher.
No, I think so. So, in the course of conducting your business, did you have occasion to become acquainted with my client, Mr. Capone?
I sure did, 4 or 5 times a week.
And what type of wagering did Mr. Capone do?
Oh, that's an easy one, horses. You love to bet on the ponies.
I see. He was quite skilled at that hobby?
Jeez, man, I don't want to get him all riled up here or nothing. But if I have to answer, he was, well, he was pretty lousy at it. He liked to bet on the long shots. Every once in a while, he would come in, and he would be on top of the world. But there'd be plenty of other times when he would bet on a real dog. I told him so.
Do you have any estimate of how much money he'd lose, say, on a weekly basis?
It was a lot of loot. There'd be days when he'd lose $2,000, but probably most days it's $400 or $500. I'll tell you this, none of my other clients had such bad luck.
Well, one more question. How many days would you say you provided services to Mr. Capone?
Oh, if we go back over 2 years, it'd have to be a couple hundred.
So, just rough calculations, let's say an average day at the races we lose about $500, and over a couple of hundred days, well, that's about $100,000. Does that sound about right to you?
I ain't no math genius. All I know is we lost a lot of money.
No further questions, Your Honor. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Held, you have thrown out a lot of numbers here, and you make it appear that the defendant was pretty much the unluckiest man who ever lived. In your professional experience, have you ever serviced any other client who was so utterly inept at his pastime?
Well, I've some guys we call over losers, but I ain't never seen a fella who lost as much money as Mr. Capone. Not that I'm calling you a loser, sir.
And would you happen to have any documentation? Did you keep a daily log or betting slips that might help you verify anything that you said?
Buddy, in my line of work, we don't keep paperwork, and I think you can figure out why that is.
I see. No further questions.
You may step down.
Well, we have just one more witness, Your Honor. The defense calls Mr. Oscar Gutter.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Gutter, I assume you heard the testimony Mr. Held gave a moment ago regarding my client's affinity for horse racing and his rather limited success.
Sure, I heard.
So you probably know where I'm going with all of this.
Yeah, I'll make it easy for you. Yeah, I'm a bookie, and yeah, I ran a few wagers for Mr. Capone and his associates. What's the big deal? Hey, the devil's...
All right. We'll get to that. Slow down. Do you have an estimate of how much money the defendant paid to you to lay down his bets in the years 27 and 28?
Oh, jeez, I don't know. I mean, it was a lot. A couple $100 a week, easy.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. The witness said, and I quote, "I don't know."
I'll overrule that. He can give his estimates.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gutter, were you also responsible for delivering my client's winnings from his wagers?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I am a square dealer.
And did you observe any patterns in the outcomes of this rather expensive hobby he enjoyed?
Let me put it to you this way. He spent a hell of a lot more than he made. Just like Milton just told you. He didn't have much luck. I mean, it's not like he didn't have the money to lose. I mean, what's a couple $100 for a guy like Alphonse Capone?
All right, Mr. Gutter. That will certainly be enough. No further questions. Your witness, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Gutter, the jury just heard you testify that you were, and I quote, "responsible for delivering the winnings to the defendant." Doesn't that suggest that there were times when he actually did quite well at the track? I mean, we heard Mr. Held testify that Mr. Capone liked to bet on long shots. They must pay off pretty handsomely.
I don't know what you're trying to get me to say here, Mac. I have no reason to keep count.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Gutter. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Gutter, excuse me. So, gentlemen, assuming there's no more witnesses or exhibits to present, is each of you prepared to move on to closing arguments?
Government is ready, Your Honor.
If I can confer with my client. Your Honor, the defense is ready
gentlemen of the jury, any number of citizens across this great country who are scratching out a living, just trying to keep the wolf from the door every day, even the most desperate among us, still do our patriotic duty. They pay their taxes. They may not like it. Who likes paying taxes? But gentlemen, you have seen the evidence in this case, and the evidence has shown that this defendant lived like a king. He spent thousands without blinking an eye. Even a child could figure out that he had a huge income. Did Capone really find the proverbial pot at the end of the rainbow? Did he buy diamond belt buckles to give to the unemployed? Did he buy expensive silk shirts to protect the shivering men sleeping under the bridge on Wacker Drive? Let's talk for a minute about that settlement agreement that he was prepared to present to the court. He knew he was guilty. He had no choice. If he would have come clean a long time ago about the amount of taxes that he had paid, we would not even be here today. His only defense is that he was the victim of bad luck at the track. And the evidence has shown that he claims he was apparently the most unlucky guy in the world. This story was told to you by witnesses that you would not want your daughter to bring home for dinner. No numbers were provided or attached in any way to this testimony. All that he gave you was speculation. This was the only course that this defense had to ride, and it did not even get out of the gate. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence has been presented in this case, and the evidence has been clear that this defendant, Alphonse Capone, is a tax cheat. If people only paid their taxes when they wanted to, the country would collapse. The military would disband, our institutions would vanish, and our civilization would fall. Gentlemen of the jury, send a verdict here today that will ring out all across this great land that no one, not even this man, Al Capone, is above the law. Thank you.
Mr. Fink, you may proceed.
Gentlemen of the jury, you are the only check on an oppressive government that twists the laws, trying to cheat people out of their hard-earned money. In fact, as I told you at the beginning, they're doing this because they don't like him. And I still think they're jealous of him. Oh, they talk a good game about tax evasion. But you and I know that what they're really trying to do is make you believe that he is a bad man. Hell, he may be the worst man in the world. But this is a trial about taxes and nothing else. What they're saying, what are they saying he's actually guilty of? Being successful at business. To me, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but that's a reason to be proud. And unlike a lot of successful businessmen, my client actually welcomed the opportunity to pay his taxes by volunteering to pay taxes that he didn't even owe technically. Think about and pay special attention to the prosecution's exhibit number 1, where he agreed to pay $15,000 on income that they don't even know what it was for the last 2 years, 27 and 28. Does that sound like evasion? There is not one shred of evidence that my client, the defendant, willfully evaded his taxes. Now let me tell you a little something about my client, really. I could have called a dozen witnesses to come up here and tell you that Mr. Capone is open-handed, generous, the kind of man that would never fail a friend. It should be very clear that my client is anything but a piker who would try to resist paying his tax. Lastly, as Mr. Held and Mr. Gutter testified, my client lost a veritable fortune on the horse races. His personal income has never actually been documented, but only hinted about. There's that speculation. But you clearly heard where a lot of it ended up. So in the end, if you deduct his charitable giving, his payroll expenses, and his unfortunate gambling losses, what kind of income is there really for the government to tax? Again, gentlemen, you are the last barrier between people like my client and the excessive twisting of laws that the government seeks to perpetrate. I believe your duty is clear. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, way to go.
At this point, Judge Wilkerson spent more than an hour delivering his highly technical charge to a very weary jury. The 12 jurors that left the courtroom to begin their deliberations. They filed back in 7-8 hours later, looking exhausted and sullen-faced, with their verdict in hand. Reporters in the back of the room packed the gallery like a tin of sardines. Hundreds of people gathered outside the federal court building in anticipation, because it was now time for Al Capone to learn his fate, and the whole world was watching.
Would the defendant please rise and come forward with his defense counsel? Gentlemen of the jury, have you reached the verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Foreman, please hand it to the bailiff. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. Not guilty is charged in indictment 1, criminal conspiracy to evade taxes. And we find the defendant guilty on counts 1 and 5, evasion of taxes and failure to file an income tax return. Sentencing is deferred so that the court can review the trial record and the requisite legal matters. Members of the jury, you are excused. All others shall remain in the courtroom until such time as I dismiss you.
My turn.
conviction was an overwhelming victory for the government. Al Capone was going to prison. The only question was for how long. 6 days later, Judge Wilkerson reconvened the court and handed down the sentence.
Alphonse Capone, it is the judgment of this court that you shall pay fines aggregating $50,000. In addition, you shall be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for a period of 11 years.
Your Honor, we immediately request that the defendant be released on bail.
Denied. The defendant is remanded to the custody of the United States Marshal. I'm told there's a secure transport vehicle positioned in the front entrance of the courthouse. Guards, please escort this defendant from the courthouse. This court is adjourned.
No!
Tell you folks, I'm not done fighting yet. Publicity. That's what got it. Too much hollering about Capone. Man, it was a blow below the belt. Well, what do you expect when the whole community is prejudiced against you? Well, there's a lot of big men in Chicago beat the government out of taxes every day. They get away with it. Well, they got me for now. But I'll find a way out of this. We'll get it turned around.
Ladies and gentlemen, it will be about 5 minutes before the defendant will emerge from the front entrance of the courthouse to be taken to prison. This will give you ample time to assemble outside to witness history in the making. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for participating.